Chapter 181. Yang Feng gave a slight smile. He knew that he had subdued the mind of the stunningly beautiful Eunice. Prior to this, he had only controlled her through the liquid metal nanorobots. The wonderful feeling of having one's heart and mind fusing was more than 100 times better than having the body of a walking corpse. Judy gave Eunice a somewhat envious glance, then went to Yang Feng's side. She kissed him on the cheek and said with a smile like a flower, "Thank you, Master." Yang Feng laughed heartily and embraced Judy and Eunice. After getting rid of Aldrich, Yang Feng's huge mechanical legion directly entered St. Colin City and took over the defenses of St. Colin City's various key locations. St. Colin City had also accumulated a huge amount of goods to deal with the attack of the underworld's allied forces. The huge amount of goods fell into Yang Feng's hands, making him unable to conceal his grin. Yang Feng gave an order, and countless engineering robots started to construct a variety of weapons within St. Colin City, starting to fortify St. Colin City. Additionally, all kinds of munitions factories started to be constructed within St. Colin City. Within Steel City's sphere of influence, in front of a dilapidated munitions factory, Cornell's transformed behemoth's eyes flickered with an extremely savage glint. He stared fixedly at a warlock and said in a voice that contained endless fury, "You said that St. Colin City has already been breached?" The warlock said somewhat tremblingly, "Yes, Your Holiness." Cornell's eyes flashed with a touch of madness and he bellowed, overflowing with killing intent, "Impossible! That's impossible!" St. Colin City was guarded by Warlock College Antalya and Black Dragon Pagoda. How could it have been destroyed? How could it have been breached so easily? Are you deceiving me? You're deceiving me, aren't you? The warlock felt that if he didn't handle this well, then he might be slapped to death by Cornell at any time. The warlock reported while trembling with fear, Yang Feng's mechanical legion used the mysterious weapon that killed Kamis and the others, destroyed St. Colin City's city wall and killed the 1 million knight rank experts of St. Colin City. Black Dragon Pagoda's Pagoda Master Anthony fled, Aldrich died in battle, and the entire St. Colin City was occupied by Yang Feng's mechanical legion. "Fuck! Aldrich, you fool, you misled me." Cornell's eyes were bloodshot as he faced the sky and let out a long roar. He was so angry that he vomited a large mouthful of blood. The 5 great warlock groups besieging Steel City was a plan formulated by Aldrich. Cornell had originally believed that this plan was in the bag, so he personally took action and led the Claw of Ambition's experts to burn, kill, and loot all over Steel City, destroying its munitions factories. Now that St. Colin City had been captured by Yang Feng, Savage Claw, White Elephant's Ivory and Black Dragon Pagoda were the 3 great forces that Yang Feng would definitely retaliate against. Cornell suddenly roared, "Where's the eyes of justice? Didn't they reinforce St. Colin City?" Savage Claw, White Elephant's Ivory, Black Dragon Pagoda and Warlock College Antalya were mortal enemies. It was because of this that Savage Claw and White Elephant's Ivory were responsible for cutting off Yang Feng's reinforcements. The Eyes of Justice acted as a mobile reinforcements that could support the major battlefields at any time. The warlock said extremely bitterly, "The Eyes of Justice didn't go to the battlefields, they just made a gesture. That's all." Cornell gnashed his teeth and said, "The Eyes of Justice, the Atchison, the Eyes of Justice. He's planning to sit on top of the mountain and watch as we and Yang Feng fight to the bitter end." The warlock asked, "Your Holiness, what should we do now?" Cornell promptly made a decision, "Withdraw at once. Withdraw, Savage Claw." A warlock holding a communications magic box walked up to Cornell and said, "Your Holiness, His Holiness Steel White Elephant wants to talk to you." Cornell's eyebrows creased slightly, then he reached out and touched the communications magic box. With a flash of magic radiance, Horace's voice came from the magic box. "Cornell, I just got the information that St. Colin City has fallen, Anthony is seriously injured and Aldrich is dead." Cornell said coldly, "I also got the information. Aldrich is really a good-for-nothing, he was actually so easily killed." Horace said solemnly, "That's right, Aldrich is indeed a good-for-nothing. Now we only have one chance, a chance to survive from the jaws of death. Raid Steel City's base, Giant Stone City. As long as Giant Stone City is breached and Yang Feng's uncle Yang Yi is captured alive, then we still have a chance to turn the tables. Otherwise, with Yang Ye's peerless alchemy, coupled with Warlock College Antalia's and Rose Garden's tremendous resources, as long as we give them some time, then we won't be able to resist Steel City's mechanical legion. Horace could see it very clearly. As long as Yang Feng was given some time to develop, then countless Level 8 primary battle robots would be manufactured, then it would be the end of Savage Claw and White Elephant's ivory. But his only mistake was that he guessed incorrectly that Yang Yi didn't exist. Everyone was certain that Steel City had an alchemy expert called Yang Yi, but that was because it was impossible for Yang Feng to be that peerless alchemy expert. The information regarding Yang Feng practicing cultivation in Warlock College Antalya had already been thoroughly researched by the major forces. It was impossible for him to be an expert with peerless alchemy. The only possibility was that he was served by an expert with peerless alchemy. For an expert with peerless alchemy to serve a waste with an inferior level 1 soul aptitude, apart from being a blood relative, there was no other way to explain it. Yang Ye's image also became vivid and lifelike. Conrath said coldly, "Are you sure that Giant Stone City doesn't have that mysterious alchemical weapon that killed Camus and the others?" Horace was silent at once. Even if he was tyrannical, but he still didn't dare to say that he could contend against that terrifying alchemical weapon that annihilated 18 great warlocks. As for whether or not Giant Stone City had that kind of weapon, that was simply a matter of course. Conrath said lightly, "If you want to go, then go by yourself. I'm going to take my people to Savage Claw. If Yang Feng dares to bring his people to Savage Claw, then I'll definitely exterminate him." Horace gave a long sigh and said, "All right. Return to Savage Claw." Conrath immediately ordered. All the warlocks belonging to Savage Claw quickly rode various kinds of secret treasures or extraordinary flying life forms and quickly retreated towards Savage Claw. In a secluded valley, dressed in white, a handsome middle-aged man brimming with a scholarly temperament said somewhat regretfully, "Conrath and Horace actually didn't fight Steel City to the bitter end. That's truly regrettable." This middle-aged man dressed in white was impressively eyes of Justice's leader Atchison. "However, we've already received enough offerings for this battle." Atchison smiled slightly, flipped his hand, and a scarlet crystal ball appeared in his hand. Inside the scarlet crystal ball, countless wronged souls screamed mournfully. One after another, human faces continuously tumbled inside the scarlet crystal ball, issuing extremely mournful wails. Atchison stared at the scarlet crystal ball in his hand, his eyes flashing with a trace of madness, before saying in a low voice, "Speaking of which, I still have to thank those idiots from the underworld's allied forces. If it wasn't for them, then it wouldn't have been so easy for me to collect this 100 million wronged souls bloody tear crystal. With this wronged souls bloody tear crystal, I can open a planar passageway and let the mighty Lord descend upon this plane. As for me, I can also become a formidable existence comparable to a starry sky warlock." Finished speaking, Atchison smiled slightly, waved his hand, opened a portal, and directly entered it. Before long, the news of St. Colin City being breached and Warlock College Antalya's Dean Aldrich dying in battle spread throughout Tyrandot subcontinent. The entire Tyrandot subcontinent was in an uproar. St. Colin City was the nest of the ancient warlocks. It had countless marvelous places. Since the establishment of Warlock College Antalya, it was practically impregnable, and no one had ever been able to breach it. This was also the strongest source of confidence for the 6 great warlock groups. Now that Yang Feng had captured St. Colin City, the legend of the 6 great warlock groups' nests being indestructible had been shattered. Countless people in Tyrandot subcontinent raised their eyebrows. His reputation as a traitor to humanity was also shattered. Many human forces secretly sent envoys to contact Yang Feng and deliver all kinds of minerals required by Steel City. In the battle with St. Colin City, countless small forces that opposed Yang Feng were destroyed. The remaining forces basically surrendered to Yang Feng and became a part of Steel City. Fernandro Principality, Fernandro family, in the Assembly Hall. Lamix laughed excitedly. "Ha! I told you that Steel City wasn't that simple. I didn't expect that they would even capture St. Colin City. That's really amazing. We've struck it big. At that time, Lei Mix had chosen to completely side with Yang Feng. Although he was forced by the circumstances, but he had also shouldered tremendous pressure. Now that Steel City had become Tyrannid Subcontinent's overlord rank force, it proved that his decision at that time was completely correct. In the assembly hall, the faces of all the elders were also brimming with excitement. After the battle with Steel City, it had become Tyrannid Subcontinent's overlord rank force. The forces that had sided with it earlier would also reap tremendous benefits. One of the elders hastily flattered, "Patriarch is really wise. Yang Feng has already become Steel City's Grand Marshal by marriage. I've heard that many level 3 warlock families want to offer their female clansmen to him as concubines, yet they're unable to do so." Another elder said with a smile, "That's right. I've heard that the level 3 warlock family, Blom family, wants to offer their family's first wife's daughter to Yang Feng as a concubine, yet Yang Feng has yet to agree. Our Fernandro family's Jessica is his official wife. In the future, when Steel City establishes an empire, she'll at least be an imperial concubine, her status unspeakably noble." Chapter 182. The faces of the Fernandro clan's elders were flushed as they laughed heartily. Once Steel City established an empire, then Yang Feng was bound to be Steel City's future crown prince, and even had the possibility of directly becoming the empire's emperor. After all, Yang Yi was famous for not liking to manage and wholeheartedly devoted himself to alchemy. The identity of an imperial concubine of a formidable empire comparable to that of the Black Dragon Empire was definitely much more distinguished than that of Fernandro Principality's king. Anusha also revealed a trace of a smile, just that it was somewhat forced. She was currently filled with jealousy towards Jessica. An elder suddenly said, "There are many beautiful women around Yang Feng. As far as I know, Eunice and Xianxia are both peerless beauties. Moreover, Carolina, Cordelia, Clarissa and Dephilia, the 4 holy ones, all of them are peerless beauties. Jessica is alone by his side. I'm afraid that she won't be able to compete with them for favor." The smiles of the Fernandro clan's elders stagnated and their eyes flashed with a touch of graveness. The concubines of a great empire were also divided into favored and unfavored ones. The favored concubines were far from being comparable to the unfavored concubines. "I suggest that we also send Anusha over, let her be Jessica's maid and help solidify her favor." "Good idea." The elders in the conference hall nodded slightly in agreement with this proposal. Lei Mix waved his hand, suppressing the discussions of the elders in the conference hall. He stared at Anusha and said, "Anusha, are you willing to go to Yang Feng's side for the sake of Fernandro clan and help solidify Jessica's favor?" Yang Feng's status was now different. Moreover, the story of Yang Feng leading Steel City's main force to breach St. Colin City in one fell swoop for the sake of Eunice and Judy had already spread throughout the continent. Lei Mix didn't want to rudely send Anusha to Yang Feng's side. If he nurtured an enemy of the clan, then it would be troublesome. Anusha gave a reserved smile, suppressed the excitement in her heart and said flatly, "Patriarch, I'm willing." Lei Mix nodded in satisfaction and said with a smile, "That's good, I'll take you to St. Colin City tomorrow." Apart from Fernandro clan, all the major forces in the entire Tyrannid subcontinent began to move. Many forces sent the most beautiful women of their families in an attempt to offer them to Yang Feng and become his women. After Yang Feng captured St. Colin City, he once again began to build munitions factories everywhere and fortify St. Colin City. At the same time, he had the 2 female great warlock Dephilia and Clarissa preside over St. Colin City's affairs. In Warlock College and Talia's inner court, there were many more female warlocks from Rose Garden. With Rose Garden's support and the 2 female great warlocks Dephilia and Clarissa keeping watch, St. Colin City once again became impregnable and recovered part of its power. The Dark Elves' powerhouses returned to the Dark Elves' main city in the underground world. After handing over all the affairs to others, Yang Feng, Xianxia, Eunice and Judy, the 4 people arrived at Rose Garden. In the depths of Rose Garden. "This is my Rose Garden's divine level secret treasure," The Rose-Divine Pool. Carolina took Yang Feng's group of 4 all the way to a pond and pointed at it. Yang Feng took a closer look. Blue jade-colored roses were in full bloom at the center of a wide pond. As if it had a life of its own, the pond revolved continuously and absorbed the surrounding magic energy. There were 8 huge grooves around the pool, and each groove was filled with countless inferior magic stones. With every passing minute, many low-level magic stones would turn into dust, and all the magic energy would be sucked dry. The magic energy would be directly absorbed into the Rose-Divine Pool. From time to time, a drop of blue liquid would fall from the roots of the blue jade-colored roses into the pool, forming the Rose-Divine Pool's water. Yang Feng was somewhat speechless. So extravagant, how many inferior magic stones would be consumed in a year? Carolina said flatly, 1 billion inferior magic stones must be consumed in a year to maintain it. It would take 3 years and 3 billion magic stones to accumulate such a pool of water. This pool of water can at most supply 30 people. With this Rose-Divine Pool, my rose garden can give birth to 27 first-rate geniuses every 3 years and maintain its inheritance. 3 billion magic stones. Yang Feng was also shocked by the huge number of magic stones. He had expended a lot of effort to get his hands on magic stones, yet he still might not reach 3 billion magic stones. This was the foundation of Tyrannid Subcontinent's 6 overlord rank forces. Carolina warned, after you enter and start practicing cultivation, remember to leave immediately if you feel that your body can't bear it. Otherwise, the tremendous power contained in the Rose-Divine Pool might directly burst your body. I've seen a lot of idiots think that they're exceptionally talented, that they're peerless geniuses, but in the end, their bodies burst and they die worthless deaths. Yang Feng nodded slightly, took off his clothes, his figure shook, and he jumped into the Rose-Divine Pool. As soon as Yang Feng entered the Rose-Divine Pool, he felt extremely pure life magic energy spread towards his limbs and bones. When every cell of Yang Feng's body encountered the life magic energy, it was like a thirsty traveler in a desert, madly absorbing the extremely pure life magic energy. Yang Feng operated the secret method Black Dragon Morph, as if the incarnation of a black dragon, madly devouring the extremely huge amount of life magic energy. Yang Feng's spirit sea churned and surged, extremely formidable spirit force was released from his soul seed, slowly condensing into the second innate spell model, Dragon Force. Warlocks with Black Dragon's blood meridians practiced cultivation according to the secret method. Every time they promoted a level, an innate spell model would automatically be born. The level 1 innate spell model was Black Dragon Scales. The level 2 innate spell model was Dragon Force. The level 3 innate spell model was Dragon Breath. The level 4 innate spell model was Dragon Might. The 4 innate spell models solidified in the spirit sea of Black Dragon's Blood Meridian Warlocks would evolve along with the cultivator. Once Black Dragon's Blood Meridian Warlocks practiced cultivation until the Great Warlock rank, then the 4 innate spell models would evolve into 4 level 4 spells. This was also where Blood Meridian Warlocks were much more formidable than Orthodox Warlocks. The 4 innate spell models of Orthodox Great Warlocks would gradually improve from level 1 to level 4 and wouldn't evolve along with the cultivator's cultivation base. Of course, level 1 spells cast by Great Warlocks would definitely be much more formidable than spells cast by level 1 Warlocks, but there was no qualitative change. After Yang Feng smoothly broke through to the level 2 Warlock rank, he once again madly absorbed the life magic energy inside the Rose-Divine Pool, feeling that every cell in his body was starting to feel full. He didn't insist and wanted to leave the Rose-Divine Pool. At this moment, the extremely strange green bead on Yang Feng's chest suddenly flashed with an emerald green radiance, madly devouring the life magic energy of the Rose-Divine Pool. At the same time, after devouring the life magic energy of the Rose-Divine Pool, it transformed into an even higher ranked emerald green power, nourishing Yang Feng's body. Under the nourishment of the emerald green power, Yang Feng only felt his whole body become extremely hungry, madly devouring the emerald green power, continuously making him more powerful. The traces of residual elixir toxins accumulated inside Yang Feng's body due to him drinking too many elixirs were also expelled from his body inch by inch. An hour later, Judy climbed out of the Rose Deity's pool. She was already unable to absorb the Rose Divine Pool's power. Once Judy came out of the Rose Divine Pool, the distant Carolina sensed her and said faintly within, "This girl's aptitude is really poor." In the past, those who could enter the Rose Divine Pool were all geniuses. They could at least last for more than 6 hours. Judy only lasted for an hour. The poor aptitude could be well imagined. Time continued to pass. 28 hours later, Eunice finally leapt out of the Rose Divine Pool, her body emitting a formidable life force. She had also promoted from a level 1 warlock to a level 2 warlock. After Carolina sensed Eunice, she gave a knowing smile. "This young lady isn't bad, her aptitude is just a bit worse than mine at that time." Yang Feng, this youngster really struck gold. Yang Feng and Shi Shui, the two of them actually didn't come out. Could it be that their aptitudes are more formidable than Eunice's? That's impossible. Yang Feng's aptitude is publicly recognized as trash, inferior level 1. Even if he promoted to a warlock, he would still have walked the evil path of a Blood Meridian warlock. How could he have stayed in the Rose Divine Pool for so long? Carolina's beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of worry. Her figure shook and she immediately appeared next to the Rose Divine Pool, her tremendous spirit force at once entering the Rose Divine Pool. Two incomparably formidable life forces were transmitted from the Rose Divine Pool, making Carolina slightly loosen her heart. Then she surged with a touch of curiosity. "Since there's nothing going on, then I want to see how long they can stay inside." 3 days later, the Rose Divine Pool bubbled and Shi Shui lightly leapt out of the Rose Divine Pool. In a flash, a terrifying life force of a level 3 warlock erupted from her tender body. She had actually stepped into the realm of a level 3 warlock. When Carolina sensed Shi Shui's aura, she was immediately dumbstruck, not daring to believe her eyes. 3 days, she can actually stay in the Rose Divine Pool for 3 days. What kind of freak is she? The strongest genius in the history of Rose Garden only stayed in the Rose Deity's pool for 38 hours. She actually stayed in the Rose Divine Pool for 76 hours. She's simply a freak. Shortly after Shi Shui left the Rose Divine Pool, the Rose Divine Pool bubbled and surged. Yang Feng at once leapt out of the Rose Divine Pool. After Yang Feng leapt out of the Rose Divine Pool, the entire Rose Divine Pool lost all of its life magic energy, turning into a pool of wastewater. Chapter 183. Yang Feng opened his eyes flickered and brimmed with vigor. His whole body was brimming with indescribable strength. His entire person started to become more handsome and charming, exuding a charming temperament. Gentle energy diffused from the green bead on Yang Feng's chest and entered his body, continuously nourishing his fleshly body and enhancing his strength. Carolina stared at Yang Feng. Suddenly a thought emerged within her. Why does this guy look so much better than before? Black Dragon's blood meridians were originally one of Tyrannid subcontinent's first-rate blood meridians. Yang Feng possessed ancient Black Dragon's blood meridians. The ancient Black Dragon's blood meridians were imperceptibly changing him practically every day, making him evolve in a more perfect direction. Blood Meridian warlocks with Black Dragon's blood meridians were basically handsome men and beautiful women. There were no ugly people. Even if there were ugly people under the influence of the blood meridians, they would slowly change into handsome men and beautiful women. Unless they were under a strong curse or some sort of dark spell, they would remain ugly. Xianxia came out from the side with a merry smile and said, "Congratulations, Darren, for promoting to a level 2 warlock and taking another step towards the great warlock path." Yang Feng said with a carefree smile, "Ha, you're such a sweet talker. Speak, what do you want from me?" After Yang Feng's cultivation base was promoted to a level 2 warlock, his strength suddenly soared and his survivability once again soared by a large margin. His lifespan increased once again, naturally making him feel extremely carefree. Xianxia said with a smile, "I have a matter to report to Darren. As for how to deal with it, I'll leave it to Darren to decide." Yang Feng said lightly, "Speak." Xianxia sweetly smiled and said, Our dark elves spent several hundred years in the surface world to support the hidden vampires in the human world. We originally planned to use them as our dark elves' pawns, but they recently broke away from our control. This kindred monarch actually intends to condense divinity and directly ascend to godhood. Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a touch of graveness as he said, "Ascend to godhood. With the help of faith power, ascend to godhood, condense a demigod lattice, and become a transcendent being with terrifying strength." This was the most crucial step in the evolution of many formidable beings from other planes. Once the kindred monarch became a demigod, then he would possess terrifying battle prowess comparable to that of a starry sky warlock. Even a terrifying existence like the ancient black dragon Vedarnia at its peak could fight against it. Yang Feng's eyes flashed with a fierce glint, and he said coldly, "That won't do. I have to kill it before it ascends to godhood." Xianxia's beautiful eyes flashed with splendor, and she said with a sweet smile, "Sir, I have a suggestion." The deepest part of the Eye of Justice headquarters was a forbidden area that only the current leader of the Eye of Justice and the various great elders could enter. A 10-meter-tall monster statue with a wolf's head, a human's head, and a tiger's head sat in the center of a blood-red altar. It had a beast-like body, long claws on both hands and feet, a pair of wings on its back, and a scorpion tail. Around the blood-red altar, there were 8 pools of blood that emitted an endless evil aura. Each of the pools was constantly churning, condensing into human faces that let out mournful and terrifying cries. No one would have thought that the Eye of Justice headquarters, which had always been fair and claimed to represent justice, would actually have such an evil blood-red altar that had killed an unknown number of living beings. Eyes of Justice's leader, the Sword of Justice Atchison, slowly walked in from outside and arrived before the blood-red altar. "Is what I'm doing really the right thing?" Atchison's eyes revealed a trace of hesitation when he saw the blood-red altar exuding a thick stench, the wailing of wronged souls, and the constantly churning pools of blood. A trace of bloodthirsty and tyrannical red light suddenly flashed in the depths of Atchison's eyes, and his gaze recovered its firmness. "Starry Sky Warlock, as long as I can promote to a Starry Sky Warlock, then I'm willing to do anything." "Atchison, my most devout believer, you've come." A majestic voice filled with terrifying pressure reverberated in the forbidden area. Atchison prostrated on the ground, his eyes brimming with fanaticism, and said loudly, "Your Majesty, mighty demonic god Cartman, your most devout believer Atchison has come with an offering. I'll open a passage here, and respectfully welcome your Majesty to descend upon this world and dominate the entire world." "Your Majesty, mighty demonic god Cartman, it was you who bestowed the power of Eyes of Justice. It was you who guided the development of Eyes of Justice. Everyone in Eyes of Justice is your most devout believer, and we respectfully welcome your arrival and dedicate everything for your arrival. You'll dominate everything, you'll control everything. This world will belong to you." 8 wizened old men, who looked as if they would die from a gust of wind, yet exuding great warlock rank life force, walked out of the caves behind the statues. They respectfully prostrated on the ground and recited words of praise. Eyes of Justice's underlying strength was frighteningly terrifying. The number of 9 great warlock rank experts was already far above that of Black Dragon Pagoda, which was reputed to have the most great warlocks. In fact, Eyes of Justice didn't have any divine rank treasures as their underlying strength, yet they were still able to become one of the 6 great warlock groups, and that was because they could obtain tremendous power from the other plane's demonic god Cartman. Their inheritance was continuous, and in every era, they had at least 7 great warlock rank experts. They intimidated the entire Tyrannid subcontinent, and no one dared to underestimate them. At the same time, they publicized that they also had divine rank treasures in their possession. Atchison raised the myriad wronged souls' bloody tear crystal high, and silently recited an incantation. The myriad wronged souls' bloody tear crystal suddenly flourished with red light, and a blood energy brimming with resentment suddenly erupted, attempting to erode Atchison. Atchison casually tossed the myriad wronged souls' bloody tear crystal into the statue's mouth. The statue opened its mouth, and swallowed the myriad wronged soul's bloody tear crystal into its belly. Black and red rays of light spread out from the statue's body. The statue suddenly split open, revealing a huge cave. A path filled with dense blood chi and demonic chi suddenly emerged, forming an extremely strange planar path, connecting to another plane. A terrifying fluctuation of power comparable to that of a god was transmitted from the other end of the planar path. The fluctuation of power was filled with ruthlessness and tyranny. Songji Plane. The path has finally opened. This plane belongs to me, Cartman. A voice brimming with greed and viciousness was transmitted from the other end of the planar path. A huge claw covered in black fur extended from the planar path, attempting to climb out. The huge claw covered in black fur had just extended from the planar path when the planar path trembled and almost collapsed. The countless blood and souls in the 8 blood pools around the altar evaporated, disappearing in midair. Damn it! This planar path is still too fragile, it can't accommodate my true body. A world-shaking roar was transmitted from the planar path, and the huge claw covered in black fur unwillingly withdrew into the passageway. Atchison, don't resist. I'll grant you the power to become a starry sky warlock. You'll be my divine emissary in the Songji plane and represent my will. Think of ways to sacrifice more life forms and stabilize this planar path. A fierce voice was transmitted from the planar path, and a sphere of blood flew out in a flash, before falling on Atchison's head. As if it had a life of its own, the sphere of blood frantically drilled into Atchison's eyes, ears, mouth, and nose. Atchison was alarmed, and instinctively had an ominous premonition. He operated his secret method, attempting to shatter the sphere of life form. But Atchison had just willed it, when like a tide, the life force inside him was absorbed by the sphere of blood. Atchison's eyes turned white, and his body twisted. An incomparably formidable power pervaded his body, directly breaking through one cultivation bottleneck after another. A boundless and terrifying life force comparable to that of a starry sky warlock slowly pervaded his body. The 8 great elders of Eyes of Justice, who looked as though they would be blown away by a gust of wind, sensed the frightening life force spreading from Atchison's body. Each and every one of their eyes revealed a trace of ecstasy and longing. They frantically kowtowed and begged, "Your Majesty, the mighty demon god Cartman, we are your most devout believers. We have dedicated everything for your great cause. Please be merciful and bestow us with more lifespan and strength." The Eyes of Justice's great elders were already nearing the end of their lifespans, and were on the verge of dying of old age. This was why they were so devout towards such a formidable existence like Cartman. They longed to obtain the lifespan and strength bestowed upon them by him. Now that they sensed the terrifying starry sky warlock rank power emitting from Atchison's body, they became even more devout and respectful. Strength and lifespan? All right, I'll grant you even greater strength and lifespan. Atchison's face flashed with a touch of a queer expression. He smiled malevolently and waved his hand. From the strange planar passageway, 8 lumps of blood flew out and pounced on the faces of the 8 Eyes of Justice's great elders. The 8 Eyes of Justice's great elders first revealed traces of smiles, then their faces twisted, as if they had seen the most terrifying thing, and their eyes flashed with a touch of despair. Before long, the bodies of the 8 Eyes of Justice's great elders began to transform. They became younger and possessed more and more strength, before finally recovering their peak state when they were young. "Greetings, Your Majesty the mighty demon Emperor Cartman." After the 8 Eyes of Justice's great elders recovered their youthful appearance, their eyes flickered with inhuman glints. They knelt on one knee in front of Atchison and said respectfully. Cartman's eyes flickered with an excited glint, and he burst into laughter. After thousands of years of planning, it's finally time to reap the harvest. The Songji Plains Dawn Imperial Court has already collapsed. Now it has become a piece of juicy meat. Whoever can snatch it, it will belong to them. I, Cartman, will open a planar passageway leading to our demon race in the Songji Plain. We'll once again descend upon this plane and become its ruler. I, Cartman, will also be promoted to a true demon god because of this achievement. Cartman said lightly, "Go and summon Eyes of Justice's warlocks. I'm going to transform all of them into puppets of our race. These human warlocks aren't weak, and they're cultivating the flawed secret methods I passed on to them. They'll serve as cannon fodder for our conquest of Tyrandot subcontinent." "Yes, Your Majesty." The demons draped in the skins of the 8 Eyes of Justice's great elders responded respectfully, and then retreated. Before long, Eyes of Justice's warlocks were summoned into the forbidden area. After they came out, although they were still draped in a layer of human skin, but they were no longer human on the inside. Before long, all of Eyes of Justice's human warlocks had been transformed into demons. After all of Eyes of Justice's human warlocks had been transformed into demons, a steady stream of grotesquely shaped demons emerged from the planar passageway. Savage Claw's headquarters, in a reception hall, there were 2 people sitting at a large table. They were Cornell and Horace. Cornell's eyebrows creased slightly, and he said solemnly, "Atchison actually wants to see the 2 of us? What the hell is he thinking?" Horace analyzed faintly, "He should be apologizing to us for the matter of the reinforcements not arriving. I'm afraid that the pressure from Steel City isn't small." These past few days, due to Yang Feng's seclusion, Steel City hadn't made any big movements. However, a steady stream of all kinds of supplies had been delivered to St. Collins City and Giant Stone City. The munitions factories issued loud noises day and night, making the 4 great forces tremble in fear and brimming with anxiety. However, St. Collins City, Rose Garden, Giant Stone City, and the City of Dark Elves, these 4 strongholds were as solid as a rock, without any flaws. Cornell and the others also had no choice but to sink into a deadlock. They could only watch helplessly as Yang Feng continued to grow stronger. Cornell snorted coldly, "Humph, that coward, he actually fled midway. If he had led Eyes of Justice's people to support Aldrich, then Aldrich might not have been defeated so quickly." Warlock College Antalya had 9 7-story tall warlock pagodas. According to reason, it required 7 great warlock rank experts in coordination with countless warlock rank experts in order to display Warlock College Antalya's most formidable battle strength. With every additional great warlock rank expert, Warlock College Antalya's defense would double. If Atchison had led all of Eyes of Justice's experts to station themselves in Warlock College Antalya's warlock pagodas, then Yang Feng might not have been able to capture Warlock College Antalya. Horace smiled bitterly and didn't say much. He was very clear that even if Atchison had led Eyes of Justice's experts to support Warlock College Antalya, Aldrich still wouldn't have let them station themselves in the core 9 warlock pagodas. Otherwise, it would be equivalent to inviting a wolf into the house and exposing his mysteries to Eyes of Justice. Chapter 184. Sorry, I'm a bit late. With a graceful smile on his face, Atchison slowly stepped into the hall. As if he had eaten gunpowder, Conrath said coldly with a straight face, "You still have the face to see us?" Horace swept Atchison with a glance and creased his eyebrows slightly. He vaguely felt that something was amiss, but he couldn't tell what exactly was wrong. Atchison said with a mysterious smile, "Everything that happened before was my fault. I've prepared a big gift for the 2 of you. I guarantee that you'll definitely like this big gift." Conrath sneered, "What big gift? What good things does Eyes of Justice have?" "That big gift is..." Atchison took a step forward, his eyes suddenly flashed with a touch of a cold glint. In a flash, he erupted with the terrifying life force of a starry sky warlock. His hands were shrouded in dense demonic chi, and he shot towards the 2 great experts Conrath and Horace. With a starry sky warlock rank expert launching a sneak attack at such a close distance, Conrath basically couldn't react in time. Defensive force fields flickered on his body, and at the same time, space distorted. He was about to launch a short-distance teleportation spell. Atchison's right hand, shrouded in endless demonic chi, passed through Conrath's defensive force field and patted Conrath's chest, directly interrupting the teleportation spell, and heavily stamped on Conrath's chest. Conrath spat out a large mouthful of black blood and was sent flying, before crashing into the wall of the hall. On the other side, Horace was also sent flying by a palm strike, spitting out a large mouthful of blood, before crashing into the wall of the hall. "You're not Atchison. Who the hell are you?" Horace was both startled and furious. He roared loudly, before forcefully tearing apart a life-saving long-distance teleportation spell scroll. "Interesting. You have a defensive demigod artifact on you." Atchison revealed a trace of a smile of interest, before reaching out with his right hand. His right hand emitted a trace of spatial fluctuations, before grabbing at Horace. The spatial fluctuations shrouding Horace immediately disappeared, before he flew into Atchison's hand. Atchison reached out and pointed at Horace's body. With a flash of black light, the semi-divine tool white elephant battle armor flew out of Horace's body and fell into his hand. Atchison casually waved his hand, and the semi-divine armament white elephant armor appeared on his body. This backward subcontinent also has semi-divine armament rank treasures. As expected of the Xianxia plane, the primary material plane said to contain the mysteries of immortality. Horace's body was churning and his eyes were overflowing with blood. He angrily said, "You're not Atchison. Who the hell are you?" Cartman smiled faintly and said, "That's right, I'm not Atchison, I'm Demon Emperor Cartman. Everyone in the Sword of Justice has already been transformed into demons by me." "Cornel, Harris, the two of you are two of the strongest experts in Tyrannid subcontinent. I admire you very much. If you side with me, I can spare your lives and grant you power. As long as you make enough contributions for me, I can even raise your strength to the demigod realm." "Devils!" As soon as he said that, Cornell and Harris were greatly shaken, and raging waves were set off in their hearts. Towards the end of the Third Warlock Dynasty, the demonic Divine Dynasty, the Xianxia Plane's human warlocks found a formidable plane, the Demonist Plane. The natives of the Demonist Plane were demons. The demonic Divine Dynasty's human warlocks launched a war of conquest towards the Demonist Plane. The fighting prowess of the demons was far beyond the imagination of the human warlocks. Although the Xianxia Plane's human warlocks barely defeated the demons of the Demonist Plane, but it was still a situation where both sides suffered. After this war, the human warlocks were no longer able to suppress the various gods and demons that filled the demonic Divine Dynasty. Due to the rebellion of the various gods and demons, the dynasty collapsed. The demons were definitely one of the most terrifying enemies of the Xianxia Plane's human warlocks. Every time the demons descended on the Xianxia continent, it would be followed by a terrifying calamity that would engulf the whole world, a demonic calamity. Tyrannid subcontinent was extremely remote, and had not experienced a demonic calamity for nearly 10,000 years. Cornell and the others didn't expect that Atchison's body was actually being controlled by a formidable demon. Cartman said lightly, "What do the two of you think about it?" While spitting blood, Cornell burst into wild laughter. "I, Cornell, am the master of Savage Claw, a man of indomitable spirit. How could I surrender to a freak like you? Back then, you demons were our slaves. Now you want to enslave your master, that's simply wishful thinking." During the time of the Fourth Warlock Dynasty, the Star Dynasty, the Star Lord had already conquered the Demonist Plane and incorporated it into the sphere of influence of the human warlocks, becoming one of the human colonies. Ever since the Fourth Warlock Dynasty, whenever a human warlock dynasty rose, the demons would obediently serve as the slaves and lackeys of the human warlocks. Once the human warlock dynasty collapsed, then they would throw stones at the human warlocks while they were down, and attack the Xianxia Plane in an attempt to replace and eliminate the human warlocks. "Stubborn fellows, go to hell." Cartman's eyes flashed with a touch of coldness, and he said frigidly. He snapped his fingers, and clouds of black demonic chi gushed out of Cornell's body, inflating him into a balloon, before exploding with a bang, turning him into countless fragments that scattered on the ground. Cartman swept Horace with a glance with his hands behind his back, and said lightly, "A wise man submits to circumstances." At that time, the Xianxia Plane's human warlocks were powerful, and we had no choice but to yield. Now, the Xianxia Plane has declined, and humans have fallen. This plane will belong to us demons, while the Tyrannid subcontinent will belong to me, the Demon Emperor Cartman. Horace, you've bitterly practiced cultivation for hundreds of years. Do you want to be as stubborn as Cornell and court your own death? Horace hesitated for a moment, before clenching his teeth and saying, Sir Demon Emperor Cartman, I can surrender to you. However, you must promise not to use any secret methods to control my thoughts. Cartman's eyes flashed with a touch of contempt, yet his face carried a trace of a kind and cordial smile as he said, All right, I promise you. Although the Xianxia Plains human warlocks had declined, and were no longer as glorious as the 8 great warlock dynasties. However, in the Xianxia Plains continent, experts were still as common as clouds, and experts were as plentiful as rain. It definitely wasn't that simple for demons to conquer the entire Xianxia Plain. They had to use human warlocks to fight human warlocks, and instigate human warlocks to kill each other. Only then would the demons have a chance. This was the experience summed up by the demons for hundreds of thousands of years. Therefore, Cartman attached great importance to Horace, who was the first human great warlock to pledge allegiance to him. Horace asked respectfully, Master, now that Cornell is dead, what do you plan to do with Savage Claw? Cartman said lightly, Destroy it. My subordinates have already followed me into Savage Claw. With Cornell dead, Savage Claw's headquarters is completely in my pocket. Savage Claw was one of the ancient warlock relic sites. If there were enough great warlocks and level 3 warlocks, then even Starry Sky warlocks could be suppressed, and even slightly contend against Moonlight warlocks. However, Savage Claw had suffered heavy losses in the Battle of Black City, and the number of great warlocks wasn't enough. Moreover, Cornell had been killed by Cartman's sneak attack. Without a leader, Savage Claw couldn't resist Cartman, a terrifying Starry Sky warlock rank expert. Cartman's eyes flashed with a touch of a crafty glint, and he said solemnly, Horace, help me make an appointment with Black Dragon Pagoda's Master Anthony. I want to meet him. Tell him that I want to apologize to him. Moreover, I'll prepare a generous gift for him. Cartman possessed terrifying Starry Sky warlock rank strength, yet he still acted very cautiously. He wanted to uproot Tyrandot's powerful forces one by one. At the moment, he was merely an embodiment of his true body in the demonist plane. Once he entered ancient warlock relic sites like Black Dragon Pagoda or St. Rose Garden, then he might be directly suppressed and killed. Horace said with a bitter smile, Master, Black Dragon Pagoda's Master Anthony was seriously injured by Steel City's Mechanical Legion and is currently in seclusion. I invited him before, but he ignored me. Cartman was slightly taken aback and said, Steel City's Mechanical Legion? When did such a force like Steel City emerge in Tyrandot subcontinent? In that case, he only obtained Atchison's body, but didn't obtain Atchison's memories. Horace was slightly moved within. Horace said, Master, Steel City's master is called Yang Yi, and he's a peerless genius in alchemy. He obtained the alchemy inheritance of the 6th Warlock Dynasty, Golem Dynasty, and refined a mechanical legion composed entirely of mechanical golems. That mechanical legion is very powerful, and we're not his match. Even the Rose Garden and the Dark Elves had joined his side. Master, if you want to become Tyrandot subcontinent's master, then Yang Yi is your greatest enemy. Cartman said faintly, Is that so? Where's Yang Yi's base? Horace's eyes flashed with a touch of a peculiar glint, and he said respectfully, His base is in Fernandro Principality's giant stone city. Cartman's eyes flashed with a touch of a peculiar glint, and he said with a faint smile, Go invite him, Rose Gardens Carolina, and the great matriarch of the Dark Elves Xianxia to White Tooth City for a chat. Tell them that the 3 of us want to surrender to Steel City, and that we need to personally discuss the conditions with them. Master. Horace's heart was filled with disappointment, yet he said respectfully on the surface. Cartman was already a Starry Sky warlock rank expert, an unparalleled existence in Tyrandot subcontinent, yet he still acted so cautiously and without the slightest flaw, which made Horace extremely disappointed. Before long, the envoys dispatched by White Ivory arrived at St. Colin City. Chapter 185. Eyes of Justice and White Ivory have decided to surrender to me? How could it be so fast? When Yang Feng heard the news from the envoys, he was somewhat puzzled. Eyes of Justice and White Elephant's Ivory were two of Tyrannid subcontinent's 6 overlords. They had ancient warlocks' relic sites as their headquarters and were extremely powerful. Yang Feng believed that as long as he was given some time to develop, he would definitely be able to flatten Eyes of Justice and White Elephant's Ivory. However, he did not expect such an overlord force to choose to surrender so quickly. Xianxia came to Yang Feng's side and said resolutely, "That's right, there's definitely a conspiracy." Yang Feng asked curiously, "Why?" Although Yang Feng felt that there seemed to be something wrong, but he also couldn't tell what was wrong. In terms of development potential, Yang Feng's Steel City was indeed far superior to Eyes of Justice and White Elephant's Ivory. It was not strange that these two forces chose to surrender to him. Ever since Yang Feng breached St. Colin's City, countless large and small human forces in Tyrannid subcontinent had chosen to surrender to him. Eunice was in charge of dealing with the defection of human forces. Although Steel City was still a city, its sphere of influence had already expanded to the point where it could rival the Black Dragon Empire. This still didn't include Rose Garden's forces. If Rose Garden's forces were added, then Yang Feng's forces would be even more formidable and frightening. Xianxia resolutely and decisively said, "I have studied the leaders of the 6 major forces of Tyrannid subcontinent in detail." Eyes of Justice's Atchison was brimming with ambition and absolutely wasn't willing to be under others. Moreover, Wild Claw and White Elephant's Tusk were like birds of a feather, always exhaling from the same nostrils. Only White Elephant's Ivory had surrendered, while Savage Claw hadn't responded. This was definitely abnormal. There must be a conspiracy behind this. Yang Feng said with a faint smile, "Heh, since that's the case, then reply to them. Tell them that if they are sincere, they can come to Rose Garden. Anyway, we have the upper hand. Even if they don't come, we won't lose anything." Xianxia said, "Yes, Lord." Yang Feng suddenly asked, "How are the preparations for that?" Xianxia's beautiful eyes flashed with a dignified look as she said, "It's ready." The corners of Yang Feng's mouth rose slightly, "Very good." The Tian's dukedom was located next to the Satsuma dukedom. It was extremely vast and had a population of more than 1 million. That night, the capital of Duke Tian's territory, Palmer City. In the center of Palmer City, in a square lit with countless magic lamps, countless handsome young men and women gathered. Countless handsome young men and women were venting their lust together, and the ground was littered with broken human corpses that had died with grievances. Countless young human boys and girls were tied up like pigs, looking at the scene in front of them in horror. From time to time, naked handsome young men and women would walk up to those young men and women. They would grab one of them as if they were picking food. Then, they would open their mouths and reveal their sharp canine teeth. They would fiercely bite the young men and women's necks and crazily devour their blood. Those handsome men and beautiful women were the vampires and the servants they had created, vampires. Kindred was also a kind of formidable race. After every pureblood kindred reached adulthood, they would possess terrifying strength comparable to that of a level 1 warlock. Vampires, on the other hand, were pureblood kindred who injected a drop of their blood into other life forms, infecting them and transforming them into their servants. Vampires transformed by pureblood kindred had an extremely low status among kindred, and would be completely obedient to the pureblood kindred who transformed them, without any power to resist. There were 2 ways for kindred to increase their strength. One was to slowly increase their strength over time. The other was to absorb the blood of life forms with a formidable soul. In Tyrannid subcontinent, their favorite food was human blood. The lifespan of kindred was also much longer than that of many other races. A lowly kindred, if nothing unexpected happened, could even live for several thousand years and slowly promote to a high-level kindred. Kindred was also a race that gave birth to handsome men and beautiful women. At that time, after Tsangji Plain's great warlocks conquered the plane of kindred, they treated kindred as pets and brought them back to Tsangji Plain. In Tyrannid subcontinent, because of this, there were kindred. For ordinary people, kindred and vampires were formidable and invincible existences. But for human warlocks, they weren't difficult to deal with. Because the infection of kindred was too strong, they were hunted down by humans in Tyrannid subcontinent and could only hide in dark corners. It was extremely unusual for so many kindred to gather in Palmer City. Moonlight sprinkled down from the sky. A blonde, peerlessly handsome, slender young man, exuding a charming temperament that would kill both men and women, slowly walked to the center of the square that reeked of blood and obscenity. This young man was the only true blood kindred in Tyrannid subcontinent with great warlock rank strength, the kindred monarch. Behind the kindred monarch followed 25 high-level kindred. The 25 high-level kindred were handsome men and beautiful women, making it hard for people to shift their gazes away. Among kindred, low-level kindred were equivalent to level 1 human warlocks, intermediate kindred were equivalent to level 2 warlocks, advanced kindred were equivalent to level 3 warlocks, and true blood kindred were equivalent to human great warlocks. True blood vampires had already purified the blood in their bodies to a terrifying degree. In the eyes of some ancient kindred experts, only true blood kindred could be considered as their compatriots, while the rest of the kindred were just ants. True blood kindred could also produce a large number of low-level kindred by injecting their true blood into other life forms. Ordinary kindred could only produce vampires, and their reproduction method wasn't much different from that of humans. The young man walked to the center of the square and said in a loud voice, "My compatriots, my servants, I am your monarch, right? Monarch! Long live the monarch! Long live the monarch!" Earth-shaking cheers came from below the square. Everyone stared at the young man, their eyes brimming with fanaticism. "We kindred were abducted from our homeland by the damned human warlocks and brought here. For the past 10,000 years, human warlocks have humiliated and hunted our compatriots, forcing us to flee like stray dogs. Now, it's finally time for us to strike back. As long as I, your monarch, become the god of kindred, then I'll shelter you with supreme divine power. I'll turn the entire Tyrannid subcontinent into our divine country. Any human will become our rations, our livestock, our slaves. Now pray, pray with all your might. I need your strength to help me ignite my god fire, become a true god, and shelter my race." Rerit spread his hands, a pair of wings unfurled from his back, and his imposing manner rose steadily. Countless moonlights sprinkled on his body, giving him a sacred aura. "Mighty Lord Rerit, you're even more noble than the true ancestor, a sacred existence. Mighty Lord Rerit, you're the ruler of myriad races. You're the monarch of the night. You're the sower of fear. Mighty Lord Rerit, you're the monarch of blood. You're the invincible god of war. You're the god of death who controls life and death. Mighty Lord Rerit, we offer our most pious faith to you. Henceforth, after death, we'll return to your divine country. We'll become your shield and resist all harm for you. We'll become your sword and slash all enemies for you. Mighty Lord Rerit, may your divine country be held high and become a star in the sky." In the center of the hall, neat and holy prayers rang out one after another. Many kindred respectfully took out Rerit's icons from their bosoms and placed them in front of them. Those icons were shrouded in a layer of dense faith power. "I'll become the god of myriad races and shelter you." Rerit's eyes burned with the flames of raging ambition. He spread his hands, took a step forward, and bellowed towards the sky. Traces of faith power were extracted from Rerit's icons and entered Rerit's body. In the center of the venue, hundreds of thousands of kindred prostrated themselves on the ground and extremely piously recited prayers. Incomparably formidable faith power entered Rerit's body, causing his imposing manner to rise steadily. Suddenly, a golden flame condensed between Rerit's eyebrows. In a flash, his life force underwent a terrifying transformation, transforming into that of a star warlock. Rerit only felt an indescribable comfort from head to toe. His entire person underwent a heaven-shaking transformation. Countless knowledge automatically became clear, and he laughed wildly. I've already ignited my god fire and become a demigod. Who in Tyrannid subcontinent can still be my mesh?" At this moment, the black clouds in the sky churned and surged, and the world became dark. A pitch-black spear shot out from the black clouds, tore through space, and stabbed Rerit. No! But why is this happening? Rerit faced upwards and issued an incomparably mournful, heart-wrenching and lung-splitting scream. Then, like an ant, his body crumbled inch by inch. Idiot, that's because the Xianxia plane doesn't allow people to become gods on their own. Rays of light distorted, and Yang Feng's figure appeared at once. He watched Rerit's body crumble inch by inch, and his eyes flashed with a touch of a complex glint as he slowly sighed. Gods were the most powerful beings in different planes. Compared to the warlock path, the god path had an incomparably huge advantage, and that was that they could live for a very long time. Even feeble divine force rank gods had a lifespan of millions of years. Chapter 186. No matter what kind of life form it was, once it ascended to become a true god, its lifespan would increase exponentially. At the very least, it would have a lifespan of millions of years. The most powerful warlocks who walked the warlock path, such as the first warlock dynasty's Time Lord, the second warlock dynasty's Taboo Lord, the third warlock dynasty's Demonic Divine Lord, the fourth warlock dynasty's Star Lord, the fifth warlock dynasty's Death Lord, the sixth warlock dynasty's Golem Lord, the seventh warlock dynasty's Magic Note Lord, and the eighth warlock dynasty's Dawn Lord. The 8 great warlocks were the most powerful human warlocks of the Xianxia plane. They founded the 8 great warlock dynasties and suppressed and conquered countless planes. However, they still couldn't resist the corrosion of time. Their lifespans were exhausted, falling one after another, turning into piles of yellow earth. Some of the gods from the same era as the Lord of Time were still alive. The difference in lifespan between the two was enough to drive many humans crazy. The spear that pierced Rerit was the strongest secret treasure refined by the first warlock emperor, the Time Lord, the god-murdering spear that had slain countless gods and Xianxia plane's ancient gods. After the fall of the Time Lord, any creature that ignited their god fire on the Xianxia plane would be killed by the god-slaying spear. No matter how powerful a warlock is, after they ignite their divine fire, they cannot resist a blow from the god-slayer spear. Only a small portion of people in Tyrannid's subcontinent knew about this secret. Among them was the great matriarch of the Dark Elves, Xianxia. Dark Elven clan's cultivation method was diametrically opposed to that of human warlocks. If Xianxia wanted to break through the legendary realm, she had to become a demigod. But in the Xianxia plane, once you promote to a demigod, you will be killed by the god-slaughtering spear. Therefore, she studied this deeply and came up with a way to break through the bottleneck. That was to lure others to ignite the divine fire and become a demigod. Then, they would seize the opportunity to snatch the broken divine fire of the demigod of death, absorb the divinity within, and transform into a divine creature. No! After Rerit let out a blood-curdling scream, his body completely collapsed and was directly absorbed by the god-slaying spear. 3 golden points of divinity fell from Rerit's remains. Yang Feng's figure fluttered, and he rushed towards the 3 gold divinities. Stop! The bodies of the 25 high-level Blood Clan members flickered and turned into streams of light as they flew toward the 3 golden divinities. They instinctively knew that the 3 golden divinities were top-notch items. You overestimate yourself. Kill them. Yang Feng ordered with a cold smile. Master. Xianxia walked out of the shadow beside Yang Feng, smiled sweetly, pointed at the 25 advanced kindred, and said coldly, Divine Judgment. The level 4 divine spell Divine Judgment instantly erupted. Black rays of light filled with divine power shot out of Xianxia's lily-white fingers and shone towards the 25 high-ranking vampires. The 25 high-level vampires let out miserable screams when they were illuminated by the black light. Blood flames erupted from their bodies and enveloped them, resisting the judgment of God's judgment. A Moffin mechanical demonic polar bear suddenly burrowed out of the ground and directly charged into the midst of the vampires and vampires. It waved its huge claws and slapped continuously, smashing the vampires and vampires into meat paste. Dephilia waved her lily-white hand, and a huge ice phoenix suddenly condensed and pounced towards the vampires and kindred. In the wake of the ice phoenix, ice and snow enveloped the land, and all the vampires were frozen into ice sculptures. The mechanical legion that had long been lying in ambush around the Palmer City also started to mobilize at full force, rushing towards the Palmer City. Yang Feng took advantage of this opportunity to reach out and grab the three divinities. The three divinities entered Yang Feng's body as soon as they fell into his hands. All kinds of knowledge poured into Yang Feng's mind at once, nearly bursting his brain. The three divinities were respectively the divinity of massacre, the divinity of blood energy, and the divinity of fear. The three divinities contained a trace of knowledge of the laws of massacre, blood energy, and fear. Even if it was just a trace of knowledge of the laws, it was already extremely huge for Yang Feng, nearly bursting his mind. However, Yang Feng had already promoted to a level 2 warlock, and his physical constitution was extremely formidable. He forcibly accepted the huge amount of information. At the same time, the three divinities entered Yang Feng's sea of knowledge and respectively released the formidable divine energy of massacre, divine energy of blood, and divine energy of fear, slowly transforming Yang Feng's body and transforming him into a divine life form. The divine energy of massacre could enhance Yang Feng's massacre instinct. The divine energy of blood could allow Yang Feng to freely manipulate his own and even the enemy's blood, and the divine energy of fear could cause enemies to feel fear towards Yang Feng in battle and weaken their battle prowess. With Yang Feng's current strength as a level 2 warlock, once he encountered an army of ordinary people, he could directly urge the power of the divine energy of fear to cause the army of ordinary people to feel fear and collapse without a fight. The 200,000 level 8 primary battle robots lying in ambush in the Palmer City slaughtered their way into the city, and then with an unstoppable momentum, the kindred and vampires in the Palmer City were utterly routed and their blood flowed like rivers. This is the smell of divinity. Someone has just obtained divinity here. A black radiance descended from the sky and Cartman suddenly appeared in front of Yang Feng, his gaze falling on Yang Feng. Being stared at by Cartman, Yang Feng felt as if he was a frog encountering a venomous snake. Instinctively, his whole body was brimming with fear. At this moment, the soul seed in Yang Feng's spirit sea, a dragon silhouette suddenly issued a roar. The blood inside him boiled and a proud and unyielding will erupted in a flash, dispelling part of the fear towards Cartman. A divine energy of fear erupted inside Yang Feng, absorbing the remaining fear and transforming it into his own power. Did you absorb the divinity here? What a waste of resources. A trifling level 2 warlock actually absorbed divinity, that's too wasteful. If I kill you now, I should be able to extract the divinity. Although there will be some losses, but there's nothing I can do about it. Cartman carelessly swept Yang Feng with a glance, then extended his hand and grabbed towards Yang Feng. Suddenly, a pitch-black demonic chi hand appeared and grabbed towards Yang Feng. Starry Sky Warlock. How come there's a Starry Sky Warlock here? Even though Yang Feng restrained his fear towards Cartman, but when faced with Cartman's attack, he still felt a sense of powerlessness. Among ordinary people, level 2 warlocks were already considered extremely powerful, but in front of Starry Sky Warlocks, they were still as weak as ants. An azure light curtain suddenly appeared in front of Yang Feng. The level 4 spell Sky Flower Water Curtain was launched, and countless water elemental particles formed a light curtain that firmly protected him. When the black demonic chi hand grabbed the Sky Flower Water Curtain, it immediately crumbled and shattered. Starry Sky Warlock, this guy, he's a Starry Sky Warlock. Yang Feng gave a furious roar and pressed the dimensional crest on his chest. The mechanical black dragon, Yang Feng's trump card, instantly flew out, flapped its wings and madly flew towards Cartman. The mechanical black dragon was refined from the corpse of the ancient black dragon Vedarnia. It was the most powerful among his mechanical battle beasts, with terrifying battle prowess infinitely close to that of a Starry Sky Warlock. It was his trump card and trump card. When the mechanical black dragon appeared, it swept its huge tail and, as if empty tie was pressing down, it directly slammed towards Cartman. A bit interesting. This alchemical golem has battle prowess infinitely close to that of a starry sky warlock. Unfortunately, your opponent is me. Cartman's eyes flashed with a touch of fanaticism. He gave a fierce roar, his figure shook, and he slammed his fist on the mechanical black dragon's tail. Boom! A terrifying blare sounded, the scales on the mechanical black dragon's tail exploded, and countless parts splashed about. Cartman was also sent flying tens of meters away from the huge blow, a trace of blood spilling from the corners of his mouth. Yang Feng promptly tore apart a fixed teleportation scroll, and a powerful spatial fluctuation enveloped him in a flash. It's no use. In front of a devil emperor, any spatial magic is useless. Cartman smiled coldly and pointed at Yang Feng. The spatial fluctuations shrouding Yang Feng disappeared in an instant, and the scroll in his hand exploded into countless fragments that scattered on the ground. Divine judgment. When they heard Yang Feng's call, the great warlocks who were slaughtering kindred rushed over. Without demur, Xianxia cast the level 4 divine spell Divine Judgment. Streams of darkness divine power condensed into black divine light and madly shot towards Cartman. Divine Judgment? It's pretty powerful. You're a pretty woman, very good, very suitable to be my childbearing machine. Cartman smiled faintly, then erupted with boundless demonic chi, which formed a demonic force shield. The streams of divine judgment divine light shone on the magic power shield, issuing sizzling sounds, yet were unable to penetrate the magic power shield. Xianxia's figure shook, and she arrived next to Yang Feng. She stared at Cartman, and her eyes flashed with a touch of bewilderment. You're not Eyes of Justice's Atchison, who the hell are you? Dephilia's figure shook, and she arrived next to Yang Feng. She stared at Cartman, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of graveness. She could feel the terrifying life force exuding from Cartman, the terrifying life force of the legendary Starry Sky Warlock rank. Cartman glanced at the void and said loftily, I'm the Demon Emperor Cartman from the Demonist Plane. You lowly humans, if you submit to me, then I'll give you a way out. Otherwise, all of you will die here today. Even those women who are hiding at the side are no exception. Chapter 187. Where Cartman's gaze swept, light distorted and Carolina slowly walked out. She stood beside Yang Feng and stared at Cartman, her beautiful eyes flashing with a touch of graveness. Yang Feng was very clear that Tyrannid's subcontinent situation was unstable. In order to obtain such a precious treasure as divinity, he had no choice but to personally set out with his true body. But before coming out, he had also gathered the strongest experts he could muster. The combination of Carolina, Xianxia and Dephilia, the three great warlocks, was enough to deal with any Tyrannid subcontinent's great warlocks. Even if Savage Claw and White Elephant's Ivory's experts set up an ambush, they could still protect Yang Feng and break through the encirclement. But they never would have thought that they would actually encounter a demigod rank expert like Cartman. Demonist Plane's Demon Emperor, that's a demon comparable to a feeble divine force rank god. The pretty complexions of Carolina and the other two women changed, their hearts brimming with shock. If it was an ordinary Starry Sky Warlock, or even a slightly weaker Starry Sky Warlock, then Carolina and the other two plus Yang Feng's more than a dozen level 4 extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts could still put up a fight. But the Demon Emperor's avatar comparable to a god, even if it only possessed Starry Sky Warlock rank strength, its understanding of power and combat understanding was still far from what Carolina and the other two women could compare to. The reason why Cartman was able to casually interrupt Yang Feng's level 4 fixed teleportation scroll was because his control over power and space had reached an unimaginably terrifying realm. Yang Feng's eyes flickered with a peculiar glint and he said respectfully, Your Majesty the Demon Emperor Cartman, I am Steel City's Grand Marshal Yang Feng. It's not impossible for us to submit to you. Please show us your invincible strength. Only then will you be able to convince us and make us willingly serve you. Cartman gave a complacent smile as if a cat playing with a mouse and said, You're Steel City's Yang Feng? It seems that my luck is pretty good. Tell me, how do you want me to show my strength? Defeat all of you? Our Steel City's alchemy is unparalleled. I have a few of the best puppets refined by Steel City. I heard that the demon race has tyrannical physical bodies and dual cultivators. If your majesty can completely destroy these peak puppets with your physical body, then Steel City is willing to serve you. Yang Feng pressed the dimensional crest on his chest. 2 Amani light-wing icebirds, 2 Kalaman boas, 1 Bunman hurricane wolf, 1 fire lion, plus the mechanical black dragon in the sky. A total of 7 level 4 extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts appeared in front of him. Cartman swept a glance at the 7 mechanical battle beasts and said with a slight smile, "Interesting, your Steel City's alchemy is really impressive. You can actually refine so many mechanical battle beasts comparable to level 4 extraordinary life forms. Alright, I promise you that I'll show you how powerful I am." Demons had always been proud of their tyrannical physical bodies. For the Demon Emperor Cartman, the 7 level 4 extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts were just a small inconvenience. As long as he expended a bit of strength, then he would be able to tear the 7 mechanical battle beasts into pieces. He didn't have to worry about anything. Yang Feng said with a respectful expression, "Your Majesty the Demon Emperor, your strength is unparalleled. I'm just a trifling level 2 warlock. If I were to watch the fight from such a close distance, then I'm afraid that a casual punch from you would kill me. Please allow me to retreat by 20 kilometers and watch the fight from a distance of 20 kilometers. Cartman had a ridiculing expression and said with a faint smile, "All right, I'll allow you to watch the fight from a distance of 20 kilometers. A distance of 20 kilometers was nothing for Cartman. Furthermore, with his strength, as long as Yang Feng wanted to cast a spatial spell to escape, then he could casually break it. Yang Feng secretly heaved a slight sigh of relief. Full of vigilance, he retreated to a distance of 20 kilometers with Carolina and the other experts, and then stopped, not making any unusual movements. Cartman revealed a trace of a smile and looked at the 7 level for extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts, his gaze in particular falling on the mechanical black dragon. Cartman was confident that he could defeat the siege of Carolina and the other women as well as the level 4 extraordinary life form rank mechanical battle beasts. However, facing the siege of so many experts, if he was even slightly careless, then he would be injured, and there was even a trace of a possibility of failure. After all, Carolina was Rose Garden's master. She had a semi-divine armament and countless trump cards. Xianxia was also a believer of the goddess Lolth. Once she went all out, she could even display Starry Sky Warlock rank strength. The mechanical black dragon was a terrifying existence comparable to a Starry Sky Warlock in close combat. Now, Cartman only had to dispose of the 7 level 4 extraordinary life form rank alchemical golems, and then deal with Yang Feng and his party. Yang Feng and his party definitely wouldn't be able to stir up any waves. The mechanical black dragon gave a shrill cry, flapped its wings, and soared straight into the sky. Its propulsion furnace was fully activated, and a terrifying Starry Sky Warlock rank strength erupted in a flash. Urged with all its might, the mechanical black dragon could erupt with Starry Sky Warlock rank strength for 1 minute. This eruption was extremely harmful to its body, and was the mechanical black dragon's strongest trump card. The 6 mechanical battle beasts suddenly erupted and pounced at Cartman. "Idiot, Shatter!" Cartman sneered, his figure shook, and he appeared in front of the 2 Amani light-winged icebirds. Demonic light flickered on his palms, and he patted the heads of the 2 Amani light-winged icebirds. Suddenly, Cartman's complexion changed, and a glint of fear flashed past the abyss of his eyes. The 2 nuclear warheads hidden inside the 2 Amani light-winged icebirds exploded in a flash, and terrifying light and heat engulfed Cartman. Practically at the same time, the 4 mechanical battle beasts, 2 Kalaman boa, 1 Bunman hurricane wolf, and 1 fire lion, also detonated the nuclear warheads inside them in a split second. 6 terrifying mushroom clouds rose into the sky, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Incomparably violent shockwaves swept out in all directions, causing the earth to tremble. Dusky clouds of radiation covered the sky, and dust rose from the ground. It was a scene of the end of the world. The hundreds of thousands of kindred and vampires in the Palmer City, as well as Yang Feng's 200,000 mechanical legion's primary battle robots, were engulfed by the nuclear explosions and were completely annihilated. He's still not dead. Quickly get rid of him. Don't give him a chance to recover, or else, the ones to die in the future will be us. The mushroom clouds of the nuclear explosions had yet to disperse, when Yang Feng's complexion suddenly changed, and he said sternly. From the mechanical black dragon's extremely powerful scanning system, Yang Feng saw that in the center of the nuclear explosions, there was an extremely dilapidated black cocoon, emitting extremely formidable fluctuations of power. Dephilia waved her lily-white hand and opened a portal. She, Carolina, and Xianxia entered the portal, and then appeared in front of the black cocoon. Saint Rose Great Radiance Purification. Carolina's entire body shone with a holy white radiance, as if a goddess of light. She raised the semi-divine armament Rose Divine Mirror and aimed it at the black cocoon. An extremely pure divine light shot out from the Rose Divine Mirror and shone on the black cocoon. The originally dilapidated black cocoon, under the illumination of the pure divine light, collapsed inch by inch. At the same time, Cartman's extremely mournful screams were transmitted. Disintegrate. Before Xianxia promoted to a high priestess, she was a legend wizard among the dark elves. She pointed with her lily-white hand and cast the level 4 instant death spell Disintegrate. A disintegration ray fell on the black magic cocoon. The black magic cocoon instantly disintegrated and completely shattered, revealing Cartman inside the black magic cocoon. At this moment, Cartman's hands had already been blown away, one of his eyes was blind, and his whole body was badly mutilated. One could even see the eerie white bones and squirming internal organs. Despite this, he still hadn't died. Demonic chi coiled around him, and he slowly recovered. His body was covered with the remains of the semi-divine armament white elephant armor. Obviously, it was this semi-divine armament that had saved his life. Carolina and the other two women were shocked when they saw this scene. The nuclear warhead's might, when detonated at close range, was equivalent to a Moonlight Warlock's all-out strike and could kill an unguarded Starry Sky Warlock. Cartman, who had fallen into Yang Feng's trap, was hit by 6 nuclear warheads, yet he still hadn't died. His strength and terror could be well imagined. "You're all going to die." A voice that seemed to have come from the depths of hell spat out from Cartman's mouth, which exposed his gums and was extremely terrifying. Cartman opened his mouth, and a demonic light shot out, directly piercing through Carolina's life force cover. She spat out a mouthful of blood, and was sent flying several tens of meters away. Extreme Cold Ice Phoenix. Dephilia's pretty complexion changed. She silently recited an incantation, and pointed with her lily-white finger. Suddenly, countless ice auras condensed into a 30-meter-long ice phoenix, and pounced towards Cartman. Wherever the ice phoenix passed, countless ice fragments scattered in the air. It was clear that the moisture in the air was instantly frozen into ice beads. In a flash, the ice phoenix pounced on Cartman and directly froze half of his body. Cartman turned his remaining eye and glanced at Dephilia. Suddenly, a magical radiance flickered in his eyes. "Mom!" As if she had seen the most terrifying thing in her life, Dephilia screamed, fell to the ground, rolled around in pain, and started crying loudly like a weak and helpless little girl. Mage's disjunction. Xianxia's pretty complexion changed. She cast the level 4 destruction spell Mage's Disjunction, and a ray of disjunction shot towards Cartman. Cartman opened his mouth, and ejected a black tongue that collided with the ray of disjunction. The black tongue was directly disintegrated, and the Mage's Disjunction was also broken. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.